Okay, here we are, 17th of December, and we're getting back to work on the Valiant after a long hiatus. So, we got this thing opened up, and we know we need to replace the so-called Chernobyl resistor in there because OA2 has burned its way through this phenolic board. And somebody had been in here and done some cobby wiring, so we just, this ground wire, let me move this, well, let's look at this mirror while it's in here. The problem right now, this ordinarily this would be very straightforward, except that somebody had done a cobby repair on this thing and left a big glorp of wire and crud on this terminal. There's only two connections to the OA2, pin 1 and pin 7, and pin 1 goes to ground, and pin 7 gets the one end of that resistor. So here's this, just this glorp of wire and solder on the end, and it's just physically hard to get out. So as soon as I can get in there and unsolder it or clip it, I'll be able to solder that resistor in, which is very simple. Down here where the black wire goes is one end of that resistor, and the other end goes up to pin 7 or pin 1, I forget which, I guess it's pin 1 on this tube socket, and the other terminal of the tube socket goes to ground. And they had a cobby little tiny ground going between this ground lug here and there, so we'll replace that. And down in here, this get in here with my probe. So right there is the terminal we have to solder to, and we've got just for sanitation's sake, I got to get that hunk of old wire off of there. I could solder the resistor on there and close it up, nobody'd ever know, but it's just too ugly for me, so I'm going to spend a little time on that. But otherwise, this is not a big deal. Cut the old resistor out, solder one end to where that black wire is, and the other end to pin number 1 on this tube socket, and close it back up. It was a little dirty, so we got in there and did some cleaning, and somebody had been in here before who was blind and stupid and made a little mess, so we'll fix that and we'll be good to go. So I'm, in the process of doing this, I realized, well, as long as I'm just doing this repair, why don't I do the other repairs on the list? I've got to reattach this bleeder resistor, put the other end of the support back in, and put the hardware in there. And then this SO239 back here, the center of it is broken out. So we'll take that SO239 out and put a new one in there. Well, sometimes you bust stuff trying to fix it. Let's put it that way. And gilding the lily here by trying to get that last little piece of crud off of the pin 1 of that OA2 voltage regulator tube socket in a cramped space. I managed to do the inevitable, and that was break the stupid tube pin off. So here's what I was trying to remove, and of course it's crimped down on there, and I couldn't uncrimp it to get it off, and finally managed to break the pin right off the socket. Well, what do you do in that case? Well, you sure don't want to remove this sub chassis here with these tubes, because then you will be doing a whole lot of soldering in an impossible space. So what you do is you get another tube socket made by the same company. In this case, I think it's probably a Cinch Jones. I'm not really sure. But this one, in this case, I had a 12-pin tube socket made by the same company that I pulled out of the drawer. And I just took the pin out. All you have to do is work on it a little bit. And let's see. I'll take this back out of here so that you can see what the thing looks like. Well, there we go. So if you work at it, you look at this little thing, you'll see that there's a little tit on the side of this thing, and it goes through the hole, and that little tit catches on the bottom of this tube socket right here and keeps it from being pulled out. So if you take a very small screwdriver like this and press against, see if we can get in here and get this. Press against that little tit right there, and push and grab the pin with your needle nose and push it back through the socket at the same time as you're releasing that little tit. You can extract the pin. So here's the pin extracted. Can't see anything. Here's the pin extracted. Now let's get this light on the back side of this hole. If you look through the hole, get a brighter light. If you look through this hole, you can see that there's a little rectangular hole in the bottom of the tube socket. So what you got to do is get this pin oriented the right way. You can see that the pin is offset on the socket. So let's see, there you go. I think you can see that thing is offset. So if you orient this thing, whoops, wrong one. I'm showing you the junk. Here's the pin, and you can see that it's offset. So that pin goes to the outside of the hole. There you can see the rectangle, so it goes to the outside of the hole. See where that mark is on the chassis. So the pin is going to go oriented that way, and you can see the hole is square on the outside and rounded on the inside. So the square part, the flat part, is where you're going to stick the pin. Let me turn this off a minute. Okay, here we are. We've got the, where is it? Can't find it. Got to be here somewhere. Couldn't find it in the viewfinder. What the hell? There it is. Okay, so we're going to just take this thing and stick it there with the pin toward the hole, and if we don't screw up, I can't hold the camera and do this at the same time. Anyway, I had to put the camera down and do it. Okay, so there you can see the pin pushed almost all the way through there, and we should be able to see it emerging from the back of the socket as well. I'll get the mirror. Shit. I think it's hard to work in here. It's even harder to photograph in here. Anyway, I don't know. Well, don't let anybody kid you. Even though this is simple, this is one nasty son of a bitch. And I hope to never do this again. Managed to break 2 pins on this tube socket because of the haywire wiring that had been done by some blind person, I don't know. And so we replaced this. Get my finger in here. Replaced this tube pin for tube number 1. Pulled out the broken one, put in a good pin from another socket. And then the Bakelite on tube pin number 7, the ground, broke away, making the pin loose. And the yo-yo that was in here had cut this original heavy ground wire that goes up. And so what we were able to do was take this ground wire and solder it to the center ground lug in the middle of the socket, bend the tube pin over, solder that to it, and bring this wire that's the little sub-chassis ground back over and solder those things all together. And as you can see, it's physically strong, and so is this one, but it's nasty. It's very difficult to work in here, mostly because of this flange right here. This flange makes it impossible to get in there and work. And I think if I had to do this again, I might bend that flange straight up so I could get in there. Anyway, one of the 2 hardest jobs in boat anchors that I can think of, other than recapping the front end of an SP600 receiver, is replacing this stupid resistor, just because it's mechanically difficult to get at and nasty, and it was made worse by the guy who had been in there before me. So anyway, we got it tied to that resistor where it goes and up there, and we got this ground situation set up properly again, the way it was designed to be. Got this resistor as far away from this capacitor as we can get. Brand new 2-watt resistor, right value, should be good. And I'm done with this son of a bitch. God, I hate it. I never want to do that again. Well, there it is, right side up. You can see the resistor very clearly here that I've put in. But man, what a bear to get at. Maybe doing it upside down the way I was doing it is too hard, but I couldn't see what I was doing otherwise. The alternative, I guess, would be to lift this thing up so that the transmitter was propped up at about 45 degrees. You can find a way to do that and try to get in at it that way. But what a bear. I don't know. There's no good way to do it. And I'm damned if I know how they built these things as a kit. Guess I could go back and read it, but one of the worst construction manuals you'll ever find is the instruction manual that came for building any Johnson kit. They were just god awful compared to a Heath kit manual, and it required that you understood and knew a lot of stuff to begin with, and but a lot of this lead placement, lead dress and stuff was just left up to the builder, and I don't know. They seemed to work, but it was one of the more challenging and difficult kits to build, largely because the manual is so damn bad. But the VFO is a bear, really is. and they had to have built these things in pieces and then wired the subassembly together after they got it on the chassis. I don't know. Anyway, I hope to not do that again, along with trying to recap the speech amplifier board in a Heathkit DX100, which is a vertical board like this, right up against the edge of the chassis, and you have to try to, either you have to remove it completely or you lean it down slightly and try to work in there. Real knuckle buster, as is this one. Electrically simpler as shit, mechanical nightmare for anybody trying to service it. But there it is, done.